Time now for Lions Central. Here's Brandon Alisaglu and Nick Kostora.
Welcome to another episode of Lions Central Radio. I am Nick Kostora, along with my co-host Brandon Alisaglu, and we have, surprisingly, a jam-packed off-season episode for you. There may not be much going on with the Lions on the field right now, but off of it, we do have plenty to talk about. We figured this is a pretty good time to go ahead and give you the full Lions off-season recap treatment. That means we're going through the draft. We're going through every player that's left the team, every player they've signed, and we will be giving full grades out for these guys. Brandon, what do you say about that?
I'm pumped up. I mean, this is we have a lot of material to go over, and it's a great way to kill time while waiting for something meaningful to happen.
That's exactly what it is. And we haven't gone into the draft yet, so it's something we need to do. There's a lot of guys that and we definitely have mixed feelings on some of them. So let's go ahead and start there. Let's go through this Lions draft. Let's grade each pick. Let's talk about how they fit with the team, and maybe get into some alternatives that we would have rather seen in spots. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, but let's go ahead and start in the first round with pick number 5, where the Lions, in my opinion, were kind of handcuffed with what they could do with the pick. There weren't many options at the top of this draft that fit what the Lions were going for. And they made a pick at a position that they really needed with Ezekiel Ansah. Brandon, I know this is a player that you're absolutely in love with, so I'm going to go ahead and let you take the floor with him.
Yeah, I haven't been shy about my affection for Ezekiel Ansah, or Ziggy, as I like to call him, or, millions like to call him. But he's 6'5", he's 271 pounds, he's about the 4'6'3". He's exactly what the wide nine needs. He's that guy that just flies up the field. He's going to make plays. I understand he hasn't played football for very long, but it's a game of instincts anyways. He can learn the other smaller stuff. This is all about him getting up the field, and this is exactly what the Lions needed.
Yeah, I didn't love the pick as much as you did, obviously, but with the departure of Averill and Vanden Bosch, this is a pick that it made sense. You have to love his athleticism and his speed and his ability to get to the quarterback. So for you, was Ansah the only pick, or was there any other direction you could have seen them going here?
Well, there was, once the big 3 tackles came off the board, being Lane Johnson, Eric Fisher, and Luke Jokel, the decision became much easier. I'd understand if people wanted D. Milliner. I wasn't that excited about him. As far as anybody else, you could have taken one of the guards because the offensive line was and probably is still an issue. But to me, Ansah was it was the hands-down pick. I mocked him to the Lions in every mock I did pre-draft, and I gave it an A. I'm going to stick by that. I understand that there is some concern about whether he'll develop or not, but I guess call me a sucker. I'm going to go ahead and drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, as far as those guards go, I don't think we could have realistically seen Cooper or Warmack here and been happy with the pick. I saw a lot of mocks like Lane Johnson. Obviously, he was off the board. And once those tackles were off the board, I think the only 2 players that made sense were Ansah or Milner out of Alabama. It seems like every year there's talk that the Lions might go with a corner in the first round. I remember there was so much talk about Prince Amakamara a couple years ago, and Mayhew just doesn't do that. So in the first round, Ansah is the pick. I think we have to like it because it fits a hole that the Lions clearly had, and he's someone that's going to be forced to contribute right away. You have to get someone that's going to be on the field with that pick, and there's so much upside here. I'm going with an A-. Okay, you gave him an A. It's a wash. They're pretty much the same thing. It was the pick they had to make. We'll see if he pans out, and if he does, you look like a genius. So
yeah, I've put quite a few eggs in his basket, so we'll see how this goes.
You've loaded up on Ansah, but we don't know your feelings as much about the Lions' second-round pick, and that was Darius Slay, the cornerback out of Mississippi State. He was obviously overshadowed by another cornerback, Jonathan Banks, while he was at Mississippi State. A lot of people didn't have him going in the second round. He was a projected third-round guy. We'll talk about the Lions' third-round pick, Larry Warford. Some people thought those two could have been flip-flopped and it would have made more sense for the Lions, but they took Slay in the second round, and he's coming off a knee injury. Everything looks good so far, but at the time of the pick, we didn't know that. We just had to trust what the Lions were saying, that he checked out. And the tape on him is pretty impressive speed-wise. He's such a fast player. He's an athlete. He plays the ball, I think, really aggressively. I love watching him and the tenacity that he plays with. But I worry at the NFL level with he's only got a 6-foot, 192-pound frame. Is he going to be able to play that aggressively against bigger NFL receivers? That's definitely going to be a concern for me early in his career. I like the pick here a lot. I also really like the pressure that this puts on Bill Bentley. I want to see these two battle for a starting spot opposite Chris Houston. I think putting the pressure on both young guys will bring out the best in both of them. I went with a B+ with this pick. What did you think of Slay?
Initially, I gave it a B. To be honest, it was a shocker. I saw Jonathan Banks was still on the board, and he'd overshadowed Slay throughout their career there, and all the pre-draft hype. Obviously, there's something Mayhew likes besides that ridiculous 4.36 speed, and he does have pretty good instincts. Another thing he actually is very good at is tackling. I really like the way that he gets dirty. That means he'll be able to contribute on special teams right away. As far as starting opposite Houston right away, besides Ron Bartel, who we can't forget about, I'm not sure he's going to be able to do it. We're going to need to see what he can do in training camp as far as, is he going to be able to take reps right away? Is he going to be able to learn everything he needs to learn to be effective? But as far as his pick, I gave it a solid B. I'm probably going to go down towards a B-. I'm not that excited about it. There were some other guys on the board I really liked, including Tank Carradine. I thought that would have been a huge pick right there. You take Ansah in the first round, Tank Carradine in the second. That defensive line is looking ferocious. For those that don't know, Tank Carradine is out of Florida State. It's another defensive end with ridiculous speed. The reason you probably hadn't heard a whole lot about him before the draft is he did blow out his knee, which obviously drops their stock. The two other guys, real quickly, that I had thought about in that spot were Menelik Watson, the offensive tackle, and even Marcus Hunt, the athletic defensive end.
Yeah, I looked at those guys too, and I think another popular player that a lot of people had talked about there was Manti Te'o. Were you on any part of that boat, the Manti Te'o train?
In the preparation for this podcast, when we were talking about, we wanted to talk about other players that could have been a possible fit there, I did think about him, and that kind of calls back to our whole Tulloch battle. I don't know that Manti Te'o could have been an outside backer. He's possible. I don't know if he has the speed to go sideline to sideline like that. So I don't know. I wasn't that upset when the Lions passed on it. I'll say that.
Yeah, I wasn't either. I wasn't sure where the fit for him would be with us. I think he's going to do better in that 3-4 where he's at in San Diego. I'm with you on Carradine. We went with one player with injury concerns over another. I guess they put cornerback as the higher priority after they already took Ansah at the end. So I think we're both happy with the position that was taken. There's definitely questions based on who else was on the board, with Banks being his own teammate who overshadowed him at Mississippi State. It makes you wonder why they didn't go that direction, but time will tell. They went with Slay. I like the fit. I like the speed. There's a lot to like here if he can prove to stay healthy over time. And that led into the third round where they went to the offensive line, which is where we knew they needed to go, and they went with a big body in Larry Warford out of Florida State. What did you think here?
Well, Larry Warford, At 331 pounds out of Kentucky, that's a big man. Yeah, I didn't want to troll you on our own show. I tried to be smooth about it. You could have just let it go.
Yeah, I should have. Go ahead, though.
Anyways, he started 37 straight games at Kentucky. This is a guy who, obviously, they can plug in right away. The running backs are going to love him. He is a guy who just clears the road. I'm a little concerned. At the time of the draft, I was so excited because every mock I had, like you alluded to just a few minutes ago, I had him going to Detroit in the second round quite a bit. But I was thrilled to see him in the third, so I gave it an A+. I mean, as far as value, you can't do much better than that as far as value. The only reason I'm going to drop it down to an A, I'm a little concerned about its ability to handle the pass rush of a penetrating defensive tackle like the two Detroit had. And especially if you can be plugged in on that right side next to a right tackle who very possibly is going to need help of his own, he's probably going to have to fend for himself quite a bit. So as much as I love the pick, and I think it's a great foundation for years to come, in the next decade hopefully, there is just a twinge of concern for me. What say you?
Okay, a twinge of concern, but again, in the third round, it was shocking he was on the board, and there's no argument here. This was the perfect selection. Detroit needed a road grading offensive lineman, and that's exactly what this 6'3", 332-pound behemoth is. He's not that explosive, but I mean, who's going to be at that size? He hustles. He plays with a chip on his shoulder. I think he's the shot in the arm that this offensive line needed. I want to see the run-first offensive lineman on this team, and that's what Warford is, especially right now. I'm with you at the A+. There are no alternatives for me at this point in the draft. I love the pick. I would have been happy with it in the second round. I love it in the third, and he's going to be someone that we keep on the offensive line for the next decade. Great pick. Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's move on to the fourth round, and I think this is one where we're going to have a little bit of discrepancy on what we think about Devin Taylor, the defensive end out of South Carolina. He's a 6'7", 266-pounder. He's a big guy. And we had already taken a defensive end at this point in Ansah, but the Lions went back to the well. Obviously, there were plenty of depth issues that needed to be addressed on the defensive line. So it kind of makes sense to go with it later in the draft, to go with another defensive end with potential. Taylor, for me, I was born in South Carolina, so I love the Gamecocks. I follow this team closely. I watch every game. And Taylor, he's someone that he would flash brilliance, but for me that was the problem with him, is it was just flashes. He played opposite Jadeveon Clowney, and Jadeveon takes the double teams, and that really opens up Taylor for rushing lanes, and he wouldn't explode through them a lot of the time. He would get lost in the shuffle. He's someone that he's a one-play per series guy, and then you don't see him. It's scary to think of him that way because there's a lot of talent here. I like his physical build. I love his athleticism, but he's someone that doesn't play consistently, and he has to be motivated. And I don't like that about Taylor, is that he doesn't motivate himself. So we had talked earlier in an earlier podcast about how Nick Fairley was stepping up as a leader, and we want to see it out of Sue. Hopefully those guys can get Taylor motivated, because if they do, I think he could be a guy that surprises people. But right now he's raw, and he needs to get his mind right. I give the pick a B just because of the potential.
Whoa!
I know. I give it a B because I've seen what he can do. He just doesn't do it consistently. So go ahead and let me have it.
Ow. Gamecock blood must be sick, because that, I'm going to go ahead and say that's just a touch ridiculous. I'm sorry, buddy. But I gave it a C-, and I haven't heard anything that makes me want to elevate that grade any higher right now. There are a few reasons for that. Like you said, he played opposite Clowney, and he couldn't explode through those lanes. A great way to prove that is he had 8.5 tackles for a loss, 3 sacks. That's it. That's just extremely subpar when you're playing against next year's consensus number one pick. Of course, that's always up for changing if there's some quarterback that blows everybody bit out of the water. But we all know who the most talented player is for next year. Also, I did think they could have gotten him easily in the next 2 rounds. I think he would have continued to be there later. I understand he's athletic. He had a 4.3 20-yard shuttle, which shows he can move back and forth real quickly. He also ran a 4.7 240. I like that. I also think that he can add more weight and still be fast, which is almost scary. I mean, maybe you can move him inside and have just another guy coming through on the inside or some 5 lineman set. You know, they can get creative. But still, I didn't like it for value, and I didn't even know about the head problems. So that makes me almost want to drop it down to a D+ just with all the issues.
Just fuel on the fire for you, huh?
Yeah, it does not make me feel good. I would have rather seen Detroit grab perhaps defensive tackle Jesse Williams out of Bama, get a little more depth in there. Because remember, this is before they signed C.J. Mosley, I believe, or even if it was after, doesn't matter. And also offensive tackle Jordan Mills. I really liked him, especially this late in the draft. So I'm going to stick with a C-, even though now I'm really leaning towards the D.
Can I boost you up to a C+ if I tell you he had 18 pass deflections in his career at South Carolina?
That's nice, but I'm definitely not going to flip it to 2 increments for it. I've got to see more, especially in that wide 9 where your job is to explode up the field. We need to see more. More.
Yeah, I'm biased. I've watched the guy a ton, and I've seen those flashes, and right now they are just flashes. But I can guarantee you that the grade that you gave Devin Taylor is better than the one that you gave to our 5th-round pick, and that was punter Sam Martin. I think it was last episode where we were talking about Jason Hansen being on the Mount Rushmore, and I was like, he's a kicker. Well, Sam Martin's a punter. He's a punter. So what do we think of Sam Martin in the 5th round?
My first reaction is still my second, third, and fourth reaction. A punter?
Yeah.
Punter. Huh. I mean, the whole thing that Martin Mayhew has been preaching has been, best player available type thing. Was this really the best player available? I can't even begin to fathom why, especially I don't understand it at all. It's funny. There were some people that were interacting with our Facebook page, which I would obviously encourage everybody to go like and to interact and comment with us, especially about things we talked on the show. But actually, I think this came through Twitter from John Lefevre, a high school friend of mine, who's saying that I believe it was his cousin was upset with my pick of Hansen on Mount Rushmore, which obviously I stick by. But there was just, I don't know. I understand that in the game of field position, you can't undervalue a punter, but to me, it's still a dime a dozen when it comes to punters.
Yeah, and I think a good rule with punters is even if he is amazing this season, let's say he's a tremendous punter and a fringe Pro Bowler, you don't take a punter until maybe the 7th rounder as an undrafted free agent. They're going to be sitting there. I mean, I guess we saw the Jags take the Jaguars take a punter in like the 3rd or 4th round last season, and that was just ridiculed beyond belief because it's something you don't do. You don't spend one of your draft picks on a punter when they're going to be there at the end or afterwards. There's just, for me, there's no reason for it. I mean, he got a strong leg, that's great, but he's still a punter, and he'll be there later. I don't think anyone else would have taken the chance on Sam Martin in the 5th round. I think you could have got him in the 6th round. You could have got him in the 7th round. Possibly undrafted. I don't know. There's just no reason for this. I'm not sure if you gave your grade yet, but mine's an F. Is yours any higher than that?
No, it's a D- just because I don't like to be mean.
All right. Well, that's very sweet of you. I'll go ahead and stamp the red F on it. As for alternatives for this selection, I just in my notes that I just put any other position possible. Do you want to go into any better detail on alternatives here in the 5th?
Well, I'm going to use that as a transition to our next one because there's a guy here that I love. His name is David Bass. He's a defensive end out of Missouri Western State. He very little known about him. The only reason I really knew much about him is I did a scouting report for Bleacher Report, and I was just blown away by his tape. He's 4.69 40 at his pro day, 4.3 20-yard shuttle. He had the most sacks in Missouri Western State history, 39.5, and he had 50 consecutive starts.
Hold on, the most in Missouri Western history.
Yeah. I was just about to say, jerk. I understand it's Division II. But when you look at him compared to the other top outside linebackers / defensive ends, while his 40 was just a little slower at 4.69 in his pro day, compared to, say, a Deion Jordan with a 4.6 or Barcavius Mingo with a 4.58. He also put up 20 bench reps, which neither of those guys did bench at either of their pro days or what I could find back then, which probably means they're not that strong. It's not like you've heard anybody going off about their strength, but he's also quicker. He had a quicker 20-yard shuttle than both of them. And when you watch his tape, he has a great spin move. He's 6'4", 262, so kind of that tweener. They could probably put a little weight on him. And he had great arm length. I wanted this kid badly. Oakland got him in the 7th round. I wish Detroit would have not taken a punter, maybe, and taken him, or even I would have taken him over Corey Fuller. Corey Fuller, the 6th rounder. Okay, I understand why. He's 6'2". He's a former track athlete. They need a deep ball threat. It's cool. He can run in a straight line, draw a safety away if he even makes the field. But I don't know. I gave it a B at the time. I'm going to go ahead and give it a B minus. He doesn't have a lot of big game experience. He only played with Virginia Tech since 2011. What do you have for Corey Fuller?
Yeah, I felt like this was the first pick where I was just kind of like, okay. It didn't excite me. I guess it continued the Lions going after the raw athletes in this class. That's what Fuller is. He has speed. He makes strong cuts, but he's not a great route runner. The tape I watched on him, he struggles in press coverage. He struggles to shake people. I don't know. It's the 6th round. I think he's someone that will make the roster. I think he can work his way onto the depth chart. But I'm not too excited about this pick. I don't know where he fits right now. I gave it a C+. It's just kind of a just there for me kind of pick, and that was kind of how I felt with our other 6th round pick, and that was Theo Riddick out of Notre Dame, the running back. He's a name people know, but I didn't really get the fit. He's someone that's obviously going to be buried on the depth chart at running back, and he's never going to play at that position, I don't think. So his versatility, which he was known for at Notre Dame, is something that he's going to have to use to be a special teams player. So is that what we want in this 6th round pick, is maybe a fringe special teamer with a chance to win a kick returning job? I don't know. I'm not on board with this pick. I don't Theo Riddick personally. The tape I've watched on him, I don't see much. I went C- here. What about you?
Yeah, I'll have to go ahead and agree pretty strongly with that. A C- I think is an accurate grade. What are you really getting from him? My initial reaction was a B- because to be honest, it was a difficult thing to figure out. Like, well, Reggie Bush insurance, maybe. He's that quick, versatile little running back. If that's what he is, and they could stash him on the practice squad if they need him, okay. That's why I'd probably actually elevate it to a solid C. I don't even think he's going to get the kick returner job. We'll be talking about that shortly when we discuss some undrafted free agents. But I also would like to go back real quick to the Corey Fuller. There is one other player that, and I'm sorry, I get real worked up about David Bass just because he's going to be phenomenal. If you watch Oakland, the Raiders got a steal in the 7th round. But also Ryan Swoop, does that have any interest for you? He obviously blew away at the combine. He was great there. I think it was like a 4.34 or 4.37, something really quick. He's the wide receiver out of Texas A&M, I believe.
Yeah. We saw him quite a bit this season because of Manziel. But go ahead.
Well, did you have any interest in him?
He went 174 to Arizona, and there was talk before the draft that the Lions might be going with a receiver late. Fuller was someone I didn't like. Swope, I thought was more of an athlete. Not more of more polished, I guess. I liked the tape I saw in him better. I thought he had more sure hands. I thought he would have been someone with more of a chance to contribute right away if that's possible between the two of them. To be honest, I wasn't, gung-ho about either pick, but I guess I would have preferred Swope over Fuller, yeah.
Well, it was interesting you used the word, or brought up the subject of immediate contribution, because as far as I know, and the last I had looked was probably a week or two ago, as you might know, I live in Arizona, so I talk to Cardinals fans quite a bit. Swope hadn't practiced yet, and interestingly enough, concussions. I wonder if this isn't a little Javid Betts, let's, kind of like Titus Young has us off taking too many head cases, because otherwise, Rick Rogers, wouldn't you rather have him than Corey Fuller? But
Oh, yeah.
But the Lions are staying away, probably because drugs, arrests, they've had their fill. I think that was the same type of thing working, except this time it's concussions, and I don't know.
Yeah. And that's probably the same reason no one was talking about the Lions and Tyrann Mathieu. I mean, it's just the Lions are a team that needs to get away from any controversy or potential for head cases. They need to move in the opposite direction of that.
And I wasn't that blown away by Mathieu anyways, but...
Well, some people were, and I'm with you. Just avoid. But let's go ahead and let's go to the first of 2 7th-round picks, and this is one that I loved this pick. It was Michael Williams, the tight end out of Alabama. I think he's someone that can find an immediate niche on this roster, and that's as a blocking tight end. I think he's someone that's going to make the roster for sure, and that's what he is. He's a tremendous blocker. I think if you can find someone that will have a place on your roster in the 7th round, I think it's a great pick. He's 6'5", he's 278, and he can catch passes, so I don't think that's something he's ever going to really be asked to do with the Lions. He's going to have a purpose, and that is to block. And there's going to be moving and shaking above him at the position. I think we've talked about Scheffler and Foria and all that, but Williams is someone that will have his role, and because of that, I went with a solid A with this pick. What about you?
I went with the B+, probably because I was still salty about David Bass. But you're right. I mean, anytime you can get somebody in the 7th round who can fill a specific need and stick on the roster, you have to like it. Like you said, he has been working hard, from what I've read, to become a better dual threat. But at this point, he's not going to win any one-on-one battles with, say, a defensive back or maybe even a linebacker. But if you forget about him, he'll catch the ball. What more can you ask for? I'm okay with it. I give it a B+.
Yeah, maybe he'll sneak one in on the goal line or something. We're never going to see him, stretching across the middle of the field wide open. It's just that's not what his role is going to be. But that doesn't need to be out of a 7th-round pick. If he does end up being one-dimensional, so be it. That's fine. It's a good one-dimension. They did have another 7th-round pick, and with it they took Brandon Hepburn. He's an inside linebacker out of Florida A&M. At the back end of the 7th round, really, you're just throwing things at the wall and hoping something sticks. Do you think Hepburn sticks?
Maybe as a special teamer. It seems like we've said that a lot, though, about players. And I understand Slay is going to be somewhere in the quarterback depth chart, but I just got done talking about how he'd be a special teams contributor. You already have Whitehead and Lewis there, who are probably going to be taking those positions as well. I'm not blown away. I mean, he does have speed, 4.54, 40. That's pretty exciting. But his numbers weren't that overwhelming. He had 86 tackles, 5.5 sacks in his senior year. I gave it a C. I mean, he's a great guy from everything I read. He has, volunteers, graduated. He was working in a biochemistry research lab, so even if the NFL doesn't work for him, I'm thinking this young man will be okay.
Yeah, I think C's about right. I mean, from what was left here, I think any pick would have been just about a C average. I mean, we don't know much about this kid. From what I looked up, he's got a 124-inch broad jump at the combine. So there's athleticism. Fringe special teamer again. I don't know. I don't really see him on the depth chart. If it pans out, great, but this isn't one we're going to get too excited about. So looking past the actual picks, we're gonna go into a little bit different direction here. We're going to look at our favorite pick, what we deemed the gutsiest pick, and then the head scratcher of the draft. Let's start with the positive, and let's go with the pick that you thought that was your favorite pick of this draft.
You know I'm going down with this ship. I'm going Ezekiel Ansah.
Really?
It was one where they didn't overthink it. It's, we could use a good cornerback like a D. Milliner. Well, you spent 3 picks last year on cornerbacks who probably going to be okay. You have Chris Houston there, especially with the other things they did back in the secondary. You needed that difference maker at the defensive end position. In my opinion, they got the best one there. I loved it. And, I've said it before. If Ezekiel Ansah has a good to great season, the Lions will go back to the playoffs.
Okay. You went the direction I think anyone who's listened to the show knew you would go, and that's fine. Stick by your man. If Ansah pans out, we know how you felt about him. I don't know if I'll disagree, but I have a different opinion. My favorite pick was Larry Warford, the guy who I claimed was from Florida State. I love this pick for all the reasons we already talked about. Just the value to get him in the 3rd round. I don't know if other teams knew something that the Lions didn't, and that's why he fell this far, but to get the guy that I thought was high 2nd round talent in the 3rd round who's going to come in immediately and be a great run blocker for a team that really wants to establish that rushing presence, I can't find many faults with this pick. I love it. I think it was their best one of the draft. On the next topic, which is the gutsiest pick, I think it was the one that was made just ahead of him, and that was Darius Slay. I'm more comfortable with it because we got Warford in the 3rd, but we didn't know that he'd be there. We talked about how it would have been cool if they had swapped Warford and Slay, got Warford in the 2nd, Slay in the 3rd, but at the time they didn't know that would be an option. So this is a risky pick with his knee problems, and he's someone that only really started for a full season, and he had a better corner on the other side of him, so he never saw opponents' best receivers. He would always see their 2nd guy while Jonathan Banks dealt with the top gun. So I think there's a high ceiling to Slay, and I think he could pan out, but there is a ton of risk with this pick. And in the 2nd round, after we had already taken such a high upside guy with Ansah that isn't necessarily a safe pick, I guess I was hoping when they made the pick, I was hoping they'd go in a different direction. I'm glad they went with a corner, but I wasn't too excited that it was Slay here. What was your gutsiest pick?
Well, first, I have to agree with your Warford favorite pick. If it was the best value, hands down, that's the guy. So I can't argue with you there. Slay is a very good option for gutsiest pick. It makes me a little nervous because I'm going back to Ezekiel Ansah.
Ooh.
Maybe it should be a little troublesome that the first 2 picks of the Lions drafts we've pegged as their gutsiest pick. But
yeah,
there were the red flags of this guy's played football for all of 2.5 years. He only had 4.5 sacks his senior year. But they still felt the need to pull the trigger. I applaud them for it. I think it was the right call. It's better than, picking a punter in the 5th round, which also seems to happen to be my head-shaking pick. And if you come up with anything else, I might just drop the mic and walk off this podcast.
Well, hold on. You're not going with Ansah as your head-scratcher?
I'll find a way to weave him into the next segment, I'm sure.
Sure.
But as for Sam Martin...
I definitely agree with you on Sam Martin, the punter. I don't see how anyone else could have been the big head-scratcher here. You don't take a punter in the 5th round. We've said it. We'll say it again. We'll say it forevermore. Sam Martin, you may be a great punter, but in the 5th round, you don't make a whole heck of a lot of sense. So that does it for our draft recap portion of the show. I think now is a good time to give an overall draft grade for this team. When you put it all together, Brandon, what grade do you give Mayhew for this draft as a whole? What do you think?
I want to go higher, like a high grade. I want to give him that A- because there were some picks that I really loved. But ultimately, I'm going with a boom or bust B-. If Slay and Ansah pan out, this is a great draft. But the problem is, as we've said, I don't know how many times already, he drafted a punter in the 5th round. And that, I wasn't in love with Devin Taylor at that spot. Those two picks just, I don't know, they left me so underwhelmed, along with the Slay pick. I'm going with the B-.
Yeah, I think what you said is true, but it's also, I mean, when you say if their first and second round picks pan out, it's a great draft. I mean, that's obviously true for any team. And with these two picks, there's a ton of question marks, a lot of upside. But that 5th round pick is a head scratcher. Fuller and Riddick are two guys that they took late that there's no excitement surrounding either of those two. You didn't like Devin Taylor. I do, but again, that's a really boom or bust pick. The ones that we love, Warford. We both agree that in the 7th round, Michael Williams is a guy that fills a hole. B. B with potential to be an A+, obviously. We love part, we hate part, and we dislike. I don't know. B is the way to go here. They did what they had to do, though. They filled the needs that were really jumping out at you heading into the draft. People clamored for that guard. They got Warford. We needed to address the defensive line. They went at it head-on with Ansah and Taylor. And I think Slay is a corner that is going to compete. So we're going with a solid B on this draft. But the draft obviously is not the end of the Lions offseason. There was plenty more coming here. And I think a good place to turn now is the guys that are no longer on the depth chart, the guys that left in this offseason. There were some big names. There were some smaller names. But let's start right at the top with Cliff Avril.
Cliff Avril, oh my, Cliff Avril. How much money did he leave on the table when he was so busy turning down, was it a $30 million offer for 10 years? I think that's what it was.
Cliff Avril loves him some Cliff Avril.
Yeah, I mean, it was disappointing when he left. It was disappointing when he wouldn't sign the contract back before. When things started to get prolonged and negotiations kept getting dragged out, I really lost my luster for him because he didn't exactly turn in a great season last year. And the only thing that makes me upset now, looking back, is the amount of money he's getting. I believe, and I'm going to double check real quick, but yeah, it's 2 years, $13 million. So there you go. You would have made that in almost, 1 1/3 year. If you would have signed with that with Detroit, I'm happy. But I guess taking the whole situation into account, I'm willing to give Mayhew on this particular little transaction, I'd give him a B+. You got to let that go. He seemed to be becoming a little bit of a head case. Not a head case, but at least a distraction.
Yeah, I think B+, A- is the right range here because the numbers went down last year, and when you see numbers go down in a contract year, there's, red flags go up. I guess if we could have got him back for the money that he did end up getting, I would have been happy. But now looking at if he had signed that contract that the Lions offered him, way back when, I'd be pretty upset based on what he turned in. Knowing what we know now and what they've brought in along the defensive line, I guess I'm comfortable with the departure. A lot of people have Cliff Avril as the next big thing at defensive end who's going to just rack up, a ton of sacks like he did 2 years ago. And maybe he will, maybe he won't. Based on what I saw last season, I saw someone that wasn't always giving full effort, someone that a lot of the time just didn't seem to care. I don't know. Did you get that vibe that sometimes he was just going through the motions out there?
Yeah, maybe not so much from his on-field play because he seemed to blend into the background anyways. But at least from the way he acted, and his interviews with media, and I understand that these guys have to get real tired of answering questions about their contract situations, especially because half the time it's not stuff they can control. But how surly he was, it kind of really started to grate on me. And when he denied, or said no to decline that contract offer, and then now he's just thrilled to be a member of the Seahawks for a third of the money. I don't know. I mean, good riddance.
Yeah, we're on the same page with this one. There's just, I don't know, something seems off with April, and the money that Mayhew, I think, made the right move here. So B+, A-. If he does do amazing things with Seattle, then maybe they did get a bargain. But I think I think Ansah could be, I don't know. I won't get into Ansah.
Well, and the thing is, if this was the Seahawks Central Radio, I would give this deal probably an A-, maybe a B+. Because, you just picked up a guy who has proven that he can do these things, although I don't know in their system. That's going to be a little different. They run a different system, much different system, where one defensive end basically isn't counted on to provide pressure most of the time.
Right.
And he's going to be in a rotation, one would imagine, with Michael Bennett and Bruce Irvin. But still, for the amount of money that they have to pay him, and it's only a 2-year deal, hey, great for them. And
go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, that's the same type of thing, I suppose, when you look at Goddard to Indianapolis. They're excited because their offensive line was garbage last year. Andrew Luck was. I mean, that guy was completing passes from his butt half the season. I don't know how he did it, how he stayed healthy. But they're ecstatic because they got a tackle who who graded out, I believe, as the best right tackle. At the same time, they're paying him, I believe he is earning, let me double check this. Yeah, he is the 7th highest paid tackle, regardless of side in the NFL.
Goddard?
Yeah, he is tied with Michael Ruse of Tennessee. The only tackles making more money than him are Joe Thomas, Jason Peters, Ryan Clady, Brandon Albert, Russell Okung, and Trent Williams. That's it.
Wow, Goddard, I just don't see that. I don't know. I guess Indy, they had to overpay because they really needed to do something with their offensive line. I mean, obviously the Lions have seen the writing on the wall with this guy for a while. I've seen some improvement out of Cherilus in the last 2 years, but not enough to warrant that contract. I mean, I don't see anyone putting Goddard Cherilus as a top 10 tackle in this league.
Well, actually, to be fair, and I'm going to go ahead and be a jerk, but I won't be mean to, who was it I wouldn't be mean to earlier, Devin Taylor or something?
Yeah.
But I'll rag on you all day.
Oh, bring it on.
Goddard Cherilus rated as the 8th best tackle in the league last year. You know what nobody else is talking about, though? The fact that it was a contract year, and this guy's been borderline bad at the nicest level the past few years, and now all of a sudden contract year, he goes nuts. That doesn't worry you at all? No red flags?
I don't know. I guess there are red flags. I mean, I guess I've just seen too much bad since we drafted him to be excited. I don't know. I guess that rating is good and all, and I guess that's why Indy paid him so much money. But I don't know. I wouldn't have been happy if the Lions re-signed him for that amount. I mean, at the same time, we can't like the situation at right tackle right now as it stands with this battle between Hilliard and Fox because there's so much unproven there. But I don't know. I wouldn't have been an advocate of bringing Goddard Cherilus back, so I'm happy with this defection. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to give it a grade, which I do because that's what we do here, and I like doing it, I'd give it a B+. We wanted Cherilus. Don't get me wrong. It would have been nice to, as a fan, I wanted him still there to protect Stafford, but at the same time, you can't pay him that much money, not with the cap situation they have. We have those two guys in Jason Fox and Corey Hilliard that it's time to find out what we have there as well. I give it a B+.
Yeah, you can't bring everybody back, and for that kind of money, I don't see the value with Goddard Cherilus. Let's turn to a couple of guys on the defensive side of the ball. We lost a couple of names here in Kyle Vanden Bosch and Justin Durant, and Corey Williams is gone as well. I don't know. This group, I think we can lump together. I mean, that they're all names that contributed with the Lions. Do any of them jump out at you as guys that you really wanted to see back in the fold?
I wouldn't mind bringing back Corey Williams. Is a depth guy at this point, but yeah, I mean, he's still out there. They could still sign him potentially. I don't particularly see it happening, or haven't read anything or heard anything or seen anything on Twitter that would imply he is. But I mean, KVB was old. He was one of the worst defensive ends in the game. It was time to go. No, there's nothing there that upsets me.
Yeah, I liked some of the stuff we saw out of Justin Durant, but like you said, these aren't signing or defections that are going to kill this organization. I think we have two legs to stand on without them. The linebacker thing will be interesting to watch the battle between Palmer and Whitehead and whoever else wants to battle for the strong side backer spot. But I don't know. I think that'll be a healthy competition. I don't think Justin Durant leaving will be too big of a thing. Let's go to let's do it. Let's go ahead and what's your grade for getting rid of Titus Young when we did?
Well, I'm going to give it a C, if only because they should have cut him long ago.
There it is. Okay, and now I get the reasoning. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it was when he starts, sucker punching your starting safety. It was that might have been enough for me to let him go, because it wasn't a situation where they were in practice and fighting for the ball and the emotion that you want out of your players was bubbling over. No, this is I'm a jackass and I'm going to punch you in the face when we're not even engaged in this way. Yeah, it was time to go for me back then. He's lining up in the wrong positions on purpose to spike the offense. Ugh. Gosh, I was ready to see him go a long time ago.
Yeah, okay, now hearing your reasoning, I get to see. I mean, what you're saying is basically an A. We had to get rid of him, and I agree. I think everyone would agree now based on what we know. At the time, I don't know. There's obviously talent to Titus Young that we saw on the field, but we also saw him line up in the wrong spot just to be that guy. So, Titus Young had to go. St. Louis might have thought they were going to get a steal out of him, and he had to go there too. So Titus Young is an A. I think if the NFL just gets rid of him as a whole right now, that's an A grade as well. Let's look at two of the lesser guys on the defensive side of the ball, and that was Andre Fluellen and Sammy Hill, who are both gone now. I like Sammy Hill. I don't know. He was a slow developer, but I like his size in the middle. I thought he was someone I would have liked to have seen back more than Fluellen at least. I don't know. Were you a Sammy Hill fan?
Yeah, I'm sad to see him go. I mean, 6'4", 329 pounds. They drafted him, I think, fourth round in 2009. Like you said, a slow developer, but it's kind of what you expect when you take a guy out of some university I've never heard of in the fourth round, and he played well. I mean, he was a pretty good backup. Yeah,
he was someone that never really got talked about too much, but when he was on the field, I thought he made plays. I don't know. He wouldn't have been. I can't. Do you know where he signed? Where is Sammy Hill? Do you know?
I believe. Let me look it up real quick. If you want to talk about Fluellen, Fluellen, whatever. I mean, I like him. He was okay, but actually, Fluellen doesn't even have a job right now.
No, he's someone that he was just floating anyway. I don't think he was someone that anyone cared to see on the roster. But Hill, I don't think it's someone that would have been too expensive to bring back. And I don't know. He's still young, and I like him as a depth piece on this roster. So I mean, he's not one of the bigger names that went, but I think Sammy Hill might be the player that I most wanted to see back out of this group. I mean, maybe not. He wasn't as talented as Corey Williams, but I think he's someone that was younger and cheaper, and I liked how he was developing. So I think that's the defection I'll give the lowest grade with Sammy Hill, and that's a D, because he's someone that I really liked.
Well, I liked him too, and my first instinct was right. I should have just blurted it out, but well, I was a wuss. Apparently, I'll go off about a rookie who's only played a couple years, more than I will just say that Samuel Lee Hill signed with Tennessee.
Okay.
But his contract, which it's a little more prohibitive than you would think. It's 3 years, $11.4 million.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I mean. This is why you're excited about it, or you're upset that he's gone because you were excited about Samuel Lee Hill. Well, apparently we're not the only ones that watch football because
Tennessee liked what they saw too, to the tune of $11 million, huh?
Yeah, and I mean he's going to be a starter there.
Even
if Detroit couldn't have matched the money. I don't think they could have afforded that right there, anyways. And let's face it, if they had matched the money, I bet you Hill would still gone because he's going to be a starter there.
Yeah, and he's someone I want to see do well. I don't know. $11 million, the Lions couldn't afford it, and I don't think we would have wanted to see them try and push $11 million that they really didn't have towards Sammy Hill with all the other needs that they had. But again, this is someone we liked, and I think we're both hoping to see him succeed elsewhere.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'll be rooting for him. I got to tell you, I've been doing a lot of research. Obviously, we both still write for Bleacher Report, which, if I'm not mistaken, I think you were the feature columnist of the week this week.
Yeah.
So congratulations.
Big Thanks.
But Tennessee is a team that I kind of like as a sleeper. I did a Super Bowl odds piece this past week, and I kind of trashed on Indianapolis. They won 9 games by a score or less. It's tough to do again. But Tennessee, if you go and look at that team, it might be a good team this year. It might make some noise. Just wanted to throw that out there. I give the Sammy Lee Hill signing for them. I give them an A. But as far as letting him go, considering the cash, B. You couldn't do it.
That's fair. Okay, so let's go ahead. I think we've juiced Sammy Lee Hill for all we can. So let's turn to the signings that the Lions had, and they made some big splashes this offseason. There's no doubt about that. I think heading into this offseason, we were wondering what the Lions were going to be able to do because they were so strapped for cash, but they found a way to open up the wallet in a big way. And let's start at the top with the biggest signing, and that's Reggie Bush. How high of a grade are you going with Reggie Bush?
Oh, this is just a perfect fit, perfect team. I mean, he excelled. He's going to have kind of a hybrid role between what he did in Miami and what he did in New Orleans. I think it's a perfect fit as far as player. I think it's a perfect fit for the team, especially because one thing I was concerned about in doing the research, 28 years old, that's getting up there for a running back. 30s, obviously, the death knell these days. But one really exciting feature of his contract, there's no dead money after next year, meaning they can cut him and there wouldn't be a cap hit that they'd have to swallow. I mean, based on what I'm seeing, and I'm getting all my numbers, by the way, from Spotrac, SPOTRAC.com. They're usually pretty spot on. But one thing I wanted to kind of, you were talking about they made big splashes. I would call them smart splashes. They weren't, there wasn't a ton of money thrown out, and there were some good guys. Reggie Bush is a big name, but not, obviously he's not Adrian Peterson or anything, but it was 4 years, $16 million. I love the fit. I love everything about it. I gave it an A+.
Yeah, and I did as well, but I think you touched on something that's very important, and you said that he's going to be a mix between what we got in New Orleans and Miami out of him, and I think that's crucial that they do find that right balance, because I don't think using him just how they did in Miami would fit here. I don't think he's just, a between the tackles every down runner here in Detroit. He's someone that we want to see used out of the backfield in pass catching situations, but we do want to see him run the ball as well. So finding that balance is key, but that's why they brought him in. And it was a big splash it made sense. It was smart. It fits what this team needs to do. They weren't just signing the big name just to do it. Reggie Bush is someone that is going to fill an important role on this team. So yeah, A+ for Bush. I think we both expect big things out of him. We love what he can do. So yeah, A+ there. Do we give as high of a grade to two of the defensive signings? One came in from elsewhere, and that's Glover Quinn, and then the other one stayed in-house, and that was Chris Houston. What do either of these grades go as high as what we gave to Bush?
Well, the Glover Quinn one, definitely. I really like what this kid can do, and the fact is he is a kid. I mean, he is a young up-and-comer, which Detroit desperately needed because none of their draft picks back there are really working out. He's 27. I guess not as much of a kid as I would like to think, but he's in his prime is more what I mean. He's pretty close to age, and say Spivey is a little older. If Spivey makes a roster, do you even care?
I wanted to care about Amari Spivey, but I don't know. The longer we go, the less I really care about him. I just haven't heard anything about him, so whatever. And the money is pretty decent when it comes to Glover Quinn, who I guarantee at some point I'm going to call Quinn Glover probably 3-4 times in the season. I just can't help it. I don't know what it is about his name. Yeah. I just can't help myself. Yeah, I mean, you call him Glover, I call him Glover. It could be Quinn Glover, Quinn Glover. I don't know. We'll figure it out at some point. Hopefully. But he's shown good instincts. I mean, he can play the game. That much we know for sure. He's the Yang to Louis Delmas Yang. He'll be more of a coverage guy, which is more of his forte a lot of times. And under $5 million, I'm cool with it. I'll give it like a B+. Chris Houston, about the same. His contract, cornerbacks make too much money, and he's making what cornerbacks of his caliber, like a Kerry Williams or a Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, are making at $5 million a year. I'm cool with it. That one I'll give an A- just because I've seen a little more out of them. What about you? Yeah, I didn't think they were going to be able to get all these secondary guys, Quinn, Houston, Delmas, and they just brought in Chris Hope, but we'll get to him. But I guess I was excited they were able to bring in all these pieces. Quinn, I don't know how you could not like the pick or bringing in Glover Quinn. He's going to start right away at free safety, and we desperately needed help in that safety position, and especially what we know now about Delmas's injury problems with Quinn. Yeah, you said it. We didn't overspend on him. It's a smart signing, and that's going to be a theme as we go through these signings. Is it was smart. He's a balanced playmaker, and I don't think there's any reason to dislike bringing in Glover. I honestly don't know how to say his first name. So bringing in G. Quinn, it's a good move. And as for Houston, yeah, re-sign him, great. We were able to stay under the cap of it. He's obviously our top cornerback, and I love it. I'll give that one a solid A as well. I've got the answer to all of our problems. We're just going to call him GQ. He's GQ from now. Oh, that's nice. I hope we can get him on the show and introduce that nickname to him. I don't know. That seems like something that could catch. Yeah, we're definitely going to have to find out a way to get him out of here. Definitely GQ from now on. Hopefully he dresses decently, or else we're just going to look like a couple of jerks. But, I guarantee it. Will anyway. I was going to say, I guarantee there are multiple times throughout the season we probably look like a couple of jerks. Yeah, speaking of a guy who won't be a jerk on the field, Pooh, you like that one? Oh, yeah, what a transition. Go ahead. But I love the Louis Delmas contract. I love Louis Delmas as a player. I love rooting for him. I wonder if his effect on the defense has been a little overblown. Mm-hmm. But the contract is perfectly set up. If you just look at it bare bones, he's only making, I think, like just under $4 million a year, which isn't bad for a player of his potential. Only 26. And if he plays, according to Spotrac, 42% of the snaps, he gets an extra $100,000 a game, about $1.6 million. Yeah, I'm cool with that. I like it. I like it a lot. I give it an A. Yeah, and I think that's something smart to talk about is that the Lions are well aware of the injury risk with him, and they've worked that into his deal. They know that Delmas isn't someone that you can really, count on for 100% of a season. He's more of like what Bob Sanders was in Indy. He's just, you don't know. Yeah, good call. I like that one. Yeah, you don't know when he's going to be on the field, but when he is, there's so much potential for great things they're aware of that. They wanted to bring him back into the fold. They want him on the field, and it's a good contract. I went B+ on this one. I don't know. I think we're getting more weary of him the farther we go into this offseason, and one of the signings they made as an insurance policy, and that's Chris Hope. signing him kind of scares me about Delmas because Chris Hope, he's not a huge name, obviously, but he's someone that can start and has started for a long time in this league, so they really want an insurance policy in place for Delmas, and I think it's a smart move to have that insurance policy. Bringing him in, which was just recently this week, I go B+ on this one. It's an important thing to have a piece behind Delmas, which we really didn't have already. I don't know, Don Carey, I think we talked about him before, isn't insurance for Louis Delmas. How do you feel about bringing him in?
Yeah, that's basically my response to it. Chris Hope he's over the hill. Who is the safety that Detroit signed? He played for Chicago. He's since retired. I can't think of his name. He got exposed by Calvin Johnson, I think on Monday Night Football or something like that. Got cut shortly thereafter, and then they signed him. It's going to drive me nuts that I can't think of this guy. He was a good guy, but reminds me a lot of that. I don't think it's a big deal. I'm not even that excited about Chris Hope coming in. It's just, okay, he's there. That's great. One thing that I wanted to touch on about Delmas. Did you see the interview? I believe it was ESPN 96.1 at the Grand Rapids.
No. What was it about?
Said his knee's like 88 to 90% ready.
That
made me feel a lot better. I heard anything from him.
Yeah, he's been quiet. He's actually been angry when asked about it before. So I don't know. It's him saying it. I don't know. Do we take it with a grain of salt, or is him finally opening up a sign that, hey, he's telling the truth? He's 88 to 90%. I don't know. I guess you go either way on that. I'm never sold on Delmas until we see him on the field.
True. Chris Harris was that safety I was trying to think of. Couldn't think of it off the top of my head.
Oh, we didn't have to save it till next week. We got it for you right now.
Right on. Yeah, exactly. I mean, overall, I give the Chris Hope a C. I just, whatever.
Okay. Well, then let's look at a couple of other defensive guys. Let's look at Jason Jones and another recent one, Israel Adonijah. Couple of defensive line pieces again. Both guys that can contribute right away. I think Jason Jones is pegged to start at defensive end opposite Ziggy, and Adonijah will be somewhere in the backup contributor mix. I keep saying I like all these signings, and again, I like both of these ones. I'm having trouble finding fault with a lot of these so far. Finding Adonijah this late in the game, I don't know. That's a nice move. He had 7.5 sacks last season with Chicago, and if you can find a situational role player that can do that much, I guess I like Adonijah more just because of the value of it, but I also love the Jason Jones pickup. So what say you?
I like both of them. Jason Jones, not as much as Israel Adonijah. I'll be honest. Adonijah is 32 years old, but I think he's got plenty left in the tank. Like you said, he had 7.5 sacks last year, and I think he might be the starter. I think he's going to beat out Jason Jones. Just, and let's see how it all breaks out in training camp, blah, blah, blah. That's weak. I think it's going to be Adonijah. I just think he's more explosive. I think he's better suited to that end, where Jason Jones isn't that great on the end. He just isn't. He's kind of he can. I think he'll be better, kind of like the defensive Corey Hilliard. He'll be able to plug in where you need him to. Well, Nick Fairley's a little tired. Hey, throw him out there. Which actually brings me to another guy who I'm really excited about is C.J. Mosley. This is a sneaky good signing. One last thing about Adonijah, they're paying him $1 million. That's
just brilliant. Mayhew can do those under the radar signings, and that's one of them where it's just like, how did he get them for that cheap? Great stuff.
Mosley's making just a little over that. He's 2 years, $2.75 million.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how he's making more than Adonijah, but go. Yeah.
Really? I mean, he's the 15th best defensive tackle last season, dude. Go to Pro Football Focus, and that's, like we said a few times, I was really excited about Mosley. As far as this Jaguars to Lions train, which
it just doesn't stop, does it?
Well, as far as I don't know the ever words that we want to hear again. If we can hopefully stop taking their cast off, that'd be great at some point. But he might be my favorite of the group. And he might be one of my favorite signings of this offseason just because it's great value, and that really bolsters that defensive interior. It really does.
The numbers aren't going to jump off the stat sheet when you look at C.J. Mosley either. I mean, he's been in the league since 2005. He's only got 11.5 career sacks. He's only had 3.5 sacks over the last 2 seasons. But he's just such a good fit. I'm with you on Mosley. I love it. He can do a little bit of everything the Lions need him to do at D tackle. I don't know. I'd like to see him push for plenty of snaps. I mean, obviously he's not going to start or anything, but it's a great role player. Him and Adonijah both. I don't know. These are just some sneaky good signings. There's so much to like here, I think.
Exactly. That's what makes this exciting. That's what, like we talked about Martin Mayhew with the draft. There's a lot of boomer bust, and there was a lot of defections. I think when we wrap up and give them our overall grade for the entire offseason, those are the types of things that really save it. I mean, those little signings.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the boomer bust nature of the draft, and then we get to these signings, and they're all these smart, safe picks. So he kind of counteracted the riskiness of the draft with these signings that are like, hey, relax. I know what I'm doing. These are good. The depth chart's going to fill itself out. Don't worry about it. And I think that continues. But you know what? Here's another good segue for you. I think that continues with a guy that I think can really bolster our special teams, like we talked about last week when we talked to him. Let's look at 2 special teams guys. But first, it's going to be Montel Owens, and I give that signing an A. I love that he's a 2-time Pro Bowler, and he's someone that's really going to, help our special teams to have a purpose and a presence. I just Montel Owens, A.
Agreed. I like how you said he's going to give the special teams a purpose, because I don't know what their purpose is except taking up space and running down the field and watching other people return the kicks way too far. Yeah. But like he said in that interview, the leadership he can bring, he can teach those kids the little things, the mindset that this actually matters. Even if you're upset that you're not playing linebacker, guess what? These plays make a difference in the ball game, and he can prove that kind of stuff. And I'm excited. I think it was a good pick. And granted, not excited like Ezekiel Ansah excited, but as excited as you can get about a special teamer. Yeah,
I mean, the Ezekiel Ansah excitement's a whole nother level. And I
told you I'd work him into another segment.
Well, I'm assuming that's not a level of excitement that you have for bringing in kicker David Akers, but go ahead and place a grade on bringing in the aging David Akers.
I give it a ho-hum D+. I mean,
B+?
D+.
There it is. Okay.
He's talking about being in his head and, it'll fix itself. That's what I tell myself on the golf course. But nobody pays me to golf, and I try to have as few people as possible watch me golf.
Mm-hmm.
So if that ball doesn't hit the fairway, whatever, I just lost, $1. Detroit Lions could be losing games. That's not exciting. I mean, hopefully the Harvard Rugland kid is as good as his YouTube video, which is ridiculous, by the way. Have you ever watched that?
Oh, I love that YouTube video. Yeah, I saw that when they signed him, and I was like, oh, well, I like him better than David Akers already.
I mean, I don't know if that'll translate to the field. I haven't, everything I've read, I mean, he's kicking the ball well. We'll find out. I hope he beats out David Akers. I don't want to count on David Akers.
I don't think anyone's too excited about David Akers. It just rubbed me the wrong way how they brought him in. I don't know. I almost got the sense that they forced Jason Hansen out of town. They kind of forced his hand, and I didn't like that. I don't know. I wanted to see Hansen back, but I don't know, that's another issue entirely. As far as bringing in Akers goes, I go with an F. I hate it. I don't know. I would have rather seen a young leg with potential or something. I don't think there's anything to David Akers. He played his hand last season. He was terrible. I don't know. I don't. Does he resurrect his career this season with Detroit? Does anyone have a lot of hope that happens?
Not particularly. I mean, I'm going back in the time machine these days. So was it Morton Anderson with the Vikings?
Yeah.
Was that the correct Anderson who went basically perfect throughout the season until he missed that kick?
The Falcons, the conference title game, where he missed that one against the Falcons. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
I'm glad you're already predicting us in the conference finals with him a chance to miss the game-winning kick.
You heard it here first, folks.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and wrap up the signings with a group of undrafted free agents that we brought in. Let's look at Joseph Foria, Stephen Miller, Cody Wilson. Do you see any high grades out of these three guys, or any of them? I don't know. Are any of them A grades for you?
Joseph Faria, as we talked about last week, got into it a little bit. I love this kid. I think I want him to beat out Scheffler, mostly because I want the cap space for the Lions to be able to, make a move or two if they want to, or even roll that over to the next year. A la the Denver Broncos. I don't know if you know about the Broncos. They are some ridiculous number, like, I don't know, $12 million under the cap, even with all the people they have, because their cap is $140 million because they rolled over $11 or $12 million from the year before. I wouldn't mind Detroit.
Won't pay Ryan Clady.
Good point. Well, hey, if it's working, why, don't try to fix what isn't broken. And I'm sure they'll come to a deal at some point. But I love Faria. That's my man.
Yeah, I know you're big on him. You want him to beat Scheffler. But just the fact that they found an undrafted free agent that'll have a chance to compete with Scheffler, I think has to make that one an A. It's nice to find a piece like that I think we both thought could have went in the sixth, maybe even earlier round of the draft. So, yeah, Foria's an A. Stephen Miller is someone that's going to compete for that kick return spot. So if you can find a guy that's going to compete for a starting role with the team as an undrafted free agent, that's got to be a high grade. And then I'm just personally big on Cody Wilson because I went to Central Michigan, and I love watching the kid. I don't know, he's a bit of a do-everything guy. He might not make the depth chart, but I don't know. I'm excited to see him in Honolulu Blue. So there's my default A just because I love Cody Wilson.
Well, right on. With that, though, I want to put you on the spot. What are you giving Mayhew for the entire off season?
Yeah, okay. So we put together everything here, the defections, the signings, and then I think we're even including the draft in this grade. So overall, this off season for the Lions, I don't know. I don't want to be too safe and say, it's a B, it's a step in the right direction. I am going to go as high with this as an A-, based mainly on the strength of our free agent signings. I think any doubts that I had based on departures and the high risk, high reward nature of the draft, I think any doubts I had were corrected by the free agent signings. I love the guys like Adonijay and C.J. Mosley that we were able to bring back, Chris Houston and Louis Delmas at a budget price. We didn't overpay really for anybody. And then obviously bringing in Reggie Bush is just the highest grade I can possibly give. So I'm going with a strong A-. There were obviously some missteps, and I don't know. I think just the fact that we took that punter in the fifth round forces us not to give an A to anything. But, yeah, I'm going strong A- on this one. I love the signings. What do you think?
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Ezekiel Ansah.
Oh, okay. No, tell us about Ansah.
I'm going to go with A, which the only reason he's not getting an A+ is because, like you said, that punter in the fifth round just burns me. And, I'm not all that excited about a couple of the picks in the draft, but if Slay and Ansah pan out, he's getting an A+ and, a retroactive 2 years later we look back because those are the easy grades to hand out. But I absolutely love the way that he waded through free agency. He understood that he was going to have to let some talented players go, but he let go of the ones that he knew we had somebody behind him that he believed in, like a Jason Fox, Corey Hilliard for a Godster, Charlotte. The players, and, KVB, Cliff Averill, that was maybe it ends up addition by subtraction. And then all those sneaky smart splashes. I might go trademark that phrase, smart splashes, after this. I love it. So I'm going with an A. That is just, I really like this offseason, and I can't wait for a couple weeks. If you don't know, folks, we're going to take off the 4th of July, family time, all that good stuff. Not to mention there's not a lot that's going to happen this week anyway. But we're going to come back in 2 weeks to do another rather large pod to start looking forward into the season. I can't wait for that because of this great offseason. I think it sets it up perfectly.
Yeah, it's definitely time to get the wheels turning towards 2013. But I think in the meantime, during this break, we really want to hear from the audience and, I don't know, judge our grades, let us know what you think of them, and give us some of your own. We're interested to hear what everyone else has to say on these. I don't know, maybe someone liked that punter in the 5th round. Maybe there's some App State Lions fans as well that really want to tell us what a leg he has. I don't know, did everyone agree that Adonijah and Mosley are kind of the unsung hero signings of the offseason? Just let us know, get at us on Twitter and Facebook. Just give us your thoughts. Tell us what you feel. We're taking that week off for the holiday, and that's a great time for you guys to give us stuff to talk about when we do come back, because we want to hear from you, and then we want to really just head strong towards 2013, because there's going to be position battles starting up. I don't know, there's going to be some actual on-field action, which is I think something we're pretty excited to start talking about is once they actually put some pads on. Oh, definitely. I mean, and like Nick said, when you're having those arguments with your family this weekend, start writing those little things down, arguments about the Lions. Let's make sure I make that clear. When you guys are arguing about, how you felt about the offseason, send us your grade. Let us know what it is. I'd love to have a little poll where we take stock of what you guys thought of the offseason, and we'll let you know the results on the next show. All right. So, everybody, we want to wish you all a happy 4th of July. For Brandon, I'm Nick. Thank you for listening to Lions Central Radio.
This has been a presentation of the Pro Football Central Network. For news, blogs, highlights, and more, log on to ProFootballCentral.com.